Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, wondering, does this person truly love me? Or am I just convenient for them? We live in a world where words are cheap, attention is temporary, and people can fake emotions for months, even years. But here's something no one tells you. A person who genuinely loves you will always ask you certain questions, questions they can't fake, questions they don't even know reveal their heart. Think about it. When we care deeply about someone, our curiosity changes. We don't just ask, how was your day? We dig deeper. We ask about their hidden fears, their untold dreams, their quiet pain, their future. People who love you aren't just interested in the surface. They want to understand your soul. And this is where most people miss it. They listen to words like, I love you, but they ignore the quality of the questions. That's the trap. Words can lie. Questions, they expose the truth. In this video, I'm going to reveal the 5 rare, undeniable questions that people who truly love you can't help but ask. These questions aren't in popular books. They're not in recycled relationship advice. They come from real emotional patterns most people overlook. If you don't hear these questions from someone, it's a warning sign. If you do hear them, pay attention, because that might just be the love you've been waiting for. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never see your relationships the same way again, and you'll know exactly what to look for when love is real. Let's dive in. There's a question that naturally flows from someone who genuinely loves you. A question that holds a weight of care and can't be faked, no matter how skilled someone is at pretending. This question doesn't come from habit or politeness. It comes from a deep desire to understand the real you. And it sounds deceptively simple. How are you really doing? At first glance, this question seems ordinary. People ask it all the time, but there's a difference, a huge difference between asking to fill silence and asking because you truly deeply care about the answer. Someone who truly loves you doesn't settle for your rehearsed response. They don't accept, I'm fine, or it's okay. They pause, they lean in, they notice the hesitation in your voice, the flicker in your eyes, the energy you're not saying out loud. What makes this question so powerful is that it signals emotional presence. It says, I'm here for what's underneath. I'm here to carry the weight you're trying to hold alone. People who love you want to be let in. They don't just want to hear your victories. They want to understand your struggles. They notice when your energy shifts. They remember your past worries. They follow up on things you mentioned weeks ago. And when they ask, it's not in passing. It's an invitation to open up. Someone who's pretending to care will ask how you're doing while their eyes glance at their phone. Someone who loves you asks, and then waits. They give you space. They invite you to be raw, to drop the walls, to be imperfect in front of them without fear. This kind of curiosity can't be faked, because it's tied to emotional investment. It requires patience. It requires presence. It shows that this person isn't here for the performance version of you. They want your truth. And when you try to brush it off, when you say you're fine just to keep things light, they don't let you escape that easily. They gently press, not to force you, but to remind you that your real feelings matter to them. They're not scared of your sadness. They're not intimidated by your anger. They want to understand it because they want to understand you. Most people overlook this. They think love is proven through grand gestures or romantic words. But the person who consistently, gently, and intentionally asks, how are you really doing, is telling you without needing to say it directly, I want to know the parts of you no one else is asking about. This question becomes even more powerful over time. When life gets busy, when distance grows, when routines settle in, people who are pretending will stop asking. They'll drift back into surface-level check-ins. But people who love you won't let you disappear emotionally. They'll keep asking. They'll notice when your answers change. They'll know when you're smiling but hurt. It's not about perfect timing or saying the exact right words. It's about showing up emotionally again and again, driven by a curiosity that comes from love, not obligation. The reason this question can't be faked is simple. It costs something to ask it with sincerity. It requires emotional effort, active listening, and a willingness to hold your truth, even when it's heavy. So when you hear someone ask you, how are you really doing? Not as a habit, not as a formality, but with patience, with attention, with the desire to know your whole story, pay attention. That's not a question people ask when they're playing games. That's a question people ask when they're in it for real. This is the first undeniable sign of true love. And if someone isn't asking you this question, you need to ask yourself why. There's a second question that someone who truly loves you will always ask. A question that digs beneath the surface and goes straight to the core of what brings you joy. It's not about temporary pleasures or what makes you smile in passing. It's about understanding what genuinely fuels your long-term happiness. The question sounds like this. What really makes you feel alive? Most people you meet will assume they know what makes you happy. They'll guess based on your hobbies, your work, or the things you casually mention. But someone who loves you doesn't settle for assumptions. They want to know what lights you up. Not just on the outside, but what brings you peace, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose. This question is so rare because most people are busy focusing on how you make them feel. They're looking at what you provide in the relationship, how you fit into their life, how you meet their needs. But someone who truly loves you turns the focus around. They want to know what makes you feel whole, what your heart craves, what gives you energy when everything else feels draining. It's not just about asking what you enjoy. It's about understanding the difference between what you like and what you truly love. For example, you might enjoy watching movies, but what really makes you feel alive might be writing your own stories, traveling to new places, or building something meaningful. The person who loves you wants to dig until they find that spark. When they ask this question, they're not doing it to control your answer or shape you into someone they prefer. They're asking because your happiness matters to them as much as their own. They're trying to understand the roadmap to your soul. They're thinking, how can I support this? How can I make space for this in your life? How can I protect this part of you? And this is where the difference becomes clear. Someone who is just passing time with you might hear your answer and quickly move on, but someone who truly loves you will listen carefully. They'll remember, they'll follow up. They'll encourage you to pursue the things that bring you alive, even if those things don't involve them. That's what makes this question so honest. People who love you want you to be happy with or without them. They're not afraid of your independence. They don't shrink your world. They expand it. They don't compete with your happiness. They contribute to it. When they ask what really makes you feel alive, they're also asking another silent question. Am I part of this? Can I walk with you in this journey? Can I help you get closer to that life you want? That's a kind of selfless curiosity that's almost impossible to fake. The beautiful thing is, they don't just ask once. They keep revisiting the question over time, because they know your happiness will evolve. What made you feel alive 5 years ago might not be the same today. People who love you stay updated. They adjust. They grow with you. Even more, they start noticing the moments when you come alive. They notice how your voice changes when you talk about certain things. They notice the excitement in your eyes, the energy in your body language. They catch the little signs you don't even realize you're giving. This question is proof that their love isn't about possession. It's about your personal joy. They don't want to clip your wings. They want to see you fly. So when someone asks you what really makes you feel alive, and then listens like your answer is the most important thing in the world, remember this: love isn't just about how they feel when they're with you. It's about how deeply they care about you becoming fully yourself. That's the love that lasts. The third question that someone who truly loves you will ask comes from a place of deep emotional investment. It's the question that shows whether your dreams, your fears, your internal world actually matter to them. The question sounds like this: what are you most afraid of losing? And what are you most excited to become? This is not small talk. It's not about temporary worries or surface level goals. This question reaches into the places you usually guard, the parts you rarely share because you're either too afraid to say them out loud, or you've convinced yourself no one really cares enough to ask. When someone asks you this question, they are trying to hold both your light and your shadow at the same time. They're saying, show me what you're chasing and show me what you're running from. I want to know both, and I'm not afraid of either. Most people will tell you they love you based on who you are right now. But someone who truly loves you cares just as much about who you're becoming and who you're afraid to lose. They care about the version of you that hasn't arrived yet. They want to understand what you hope for, but also what keeps you awake at night, and they don't judge you for either one. When they ask about your dreams, they're not asking to check a box. They genuinely want to know what your heart is pulling you toward. They're listening to see where you want to go, even if it's far outside of their comfort zone. They ask because they want to know how to stand beside you, how to cheer for you, how to make room for those dreams instead of competing with them. The real love shows up when someone doesn't just ask once. They keep asking over time because they know dreams evolve. Maybe today you're passionate about one thing, but in 5 years you might discover something entirely new that excites you. They don't lock you into one version of yourself. They stay curious. They stay open. They're not just in love with who you are today. They're committed to who you're becoming. But just as important, they also ask about your fears. Not to use them against you, not to control you, but to protect you. They want to know what terrifies you because that's how they learn to hold your vulnerabilities with care. They don't flinch when you tell them you're afraid of failure, or losing your family, or being abandoned. They don't minimize your fears or brush them off with quick solutions. They sit with you in them. They ask because they want to be someone who can ease those fears, someone who can be a safe place when those fears feel overwhelming. And here's what separates real love from temporary interest. People who are just passing through will find your fears inconvenient. They'll get uncomfortable when you open up about the things that scare you. But people who love you deeply will hold space for both your ambition and your anxiety. They will understand that real love isn't about perfect people. It's about showing up fully for the person you are, even when you're scared, even when you doubt yourself. The power of this question lies in what happens after it's asked. Do they remember your answer? Do they support your dreams, or do they subtly make you feel like you're asking for too much? Do they respect your fears, or do they dismiss them as weakness? The person who truly loves you will take your answers seriously. They will factor your hopes and your fears into their choice. They will make decisions with your dreams in mind. They will create space where you feel safe enough to grow. When someone asks you what you're afraid of losing and what you're excited to become, they are asking for access to your truest self. It's not a question for casual connection. It's a question that comes from love, patience, and the desire to see you fully, not just partially. And that's a question no one can fake. There's a kind of love that doesn't just want to be near you. It wants to protect you. Not from the outside world, but from emotional harm, including the harm that might even come from within the relationship. That's where the fourth question shows up. And it's one of the most overlooked signs of real love. What makes you feel unsafe with me? It's a hard question to ask. It requires humility. It requires courage. And most people won't ask it because the answer might expose parts of themselves they don't want to see. But when someone truly loves you, they don't just want to know what makes you happy. They want to know what makes you uncomfortable, what triggers your anxiety, what shakes your emotional safety, and more importantly, they want to know if they're the cause of it. This question is rare because it's not about control, it's about emotional responsibility. It's about someone taking accountability for how their words, their actions, or even their silence might affect you. It's asking, is there anything I do, intentionally or unintentionally, that makes you feel small, dismissed, ignored, or unsafe? A person who loves you doesn't assume they're always getting it right. They care enough to open themselves to feedback, even when it's hard to hear. They ask because they want to make sure they're not unknowingly hurting you. They're not waiting for conflict to force the truth out. They actively seek it because your emotional comfort matters to them more than their own ego. And here's where it gets deeper. When you answer this question, they don't argue. They don't try to defend themselves or justify their behavior. They listen, they absorb, they process it because their first instinct isn't to protect their pride. It's to protect you. When you say, when you raise your voice, it scares me, or when you disappear emotionally, I feel abandoned, they don't brush it off or turn it against you. They hear you and they work to better. Most people think love is about showing the best version of yourself, but someone who really loves you will hold space for the version of themselves that still needs work. And they'll invite you to help them see their blind spot. This question can't be faked because it puts them in a position of emotional vulnerability. It takes real maturity and genuine love to ask, am I a safe place for you? And to be ready for the answer, whatever it is. People who aren't serious about you won't ask this. They don't want to hear where they fall short. They avoid these conversations because they only want to see themselves through your admiration, not through your honesty. But people who love you want the truth. They know real connection comes from feeling emotionally safe, not just physically present. And here's the beautiful part. People who love you don't just ask this once. They ask it over time. They know that emotional safety isn't a one-time checkpoint. It's something that has to be protected and nurtured, especially as life throws challenges, stress, and changes your way. They stay curious about how they're showing up for you. They ask if their tone, their habits, their absence, their reactions are creating distance. And they don't just ask to make themselves feel good. They ask because they want to repair what they may have unknowingly damaged. When someone asks you what makes you feel unsafe with them, it's not a weakness, it's one of the strongest, most loving things they can do. Because they're not just asking how to love you, they're asking how to protect you from being hurt by the person you've trusted the most. This is real love, and this is a question you should never ignore. There's a question that rarely gets spoken out loud, but it's the most powerful test of all. It's the question that isn't always asked with words. It's asked in silence, in patience, in the spaces where most people get uncomfortable. It's this, can I love you without needing you to perform? This isn't a question someone texts you. It's not something they say directly. It's a question they ask with their behavior. It's the silent test, the one that shows whether their love for you is real or simply dependent on what you give them, how you make them feel, or how perfectly you meet their expectations. People who are attached to you for selfish reasons are often looking for what you provide: your attention, your energy, your emotional labor, your beauty, your convenience. But the moment you stop performing, the moment you withdraw, get quiet, need space, or simply become human, they pull away. They might even punish you emotionally for not being the version of yourself that benefits them. That's when their love starts to fade. But someone who truly loves you passes this silent test. They don't need you to always entertain them. They don't need you to always be cheerful, impressive, or available on their terms. They don't leave when you have nothing to give. They don't disappear when you're low on energy or when you set boundaries. Instead, they stay. They remain present in the quiet. They choose to love you, even when you're not your most useful self. This question, this test, often shows up during emotional distance, during hard seasons, during moments when you're not showing up the way you used to. And it's here where people reveal their true intention. Someone who's faking love might say all the right things, but they'll start to withdraw when you stop giving them what they want. Someone who's real, they'll lean in, they'll stay consistent even when you're inconsistent. Real love doesn't demand a performance. It doesn't require you to always say the right thing, look your best, or keep the conversation flowing. Real love understands that silence is part of connection too. Real love passes the test of patience, the test of discomfort, the test of waiting. The silent question is this: can I love you through your silence? Can I love you when you're emotionally distant? Can I love you when you're not giving me what I want, without guilt-tripping you into performing for me again? This is a test most people fail. They love the version of you that's easy to love, the version that gives and entertains and uplifts. But when you retreat, when you get quiet, when you need rest, they start to get frustrated. They pull back. They look elsewhere for attention. Someone who truly loves you won't do that. They'll stay steady. They'll respect your silence. They won't panic when you need space. They won't make you feel guilty for being human. They'll trust that love isn't measured by how much you're doing. It's measured by how much you're still choosing each other even when there's nothing to get. And here's the thing. Most people don't even realize they're asking you this silent question. They don't say it directly, but their actions speak loud and clear. When you stop pouring out your energy, pay attention to who's still standing next to you. Pay attention to who still checks on you, who still values you, who doesn't treat you like you're suddenly less worthy. Real love doesn't fade in silence. It doesn't vanish when you stop performing. It stays, it waits, it listens, it holds space for you to be tired, quiet, distant, unsure, and still be completely worthy of love. This is the silent test that no one can fake. And once you see who passes it, you'll never settle for less again. If there's one message you should take with you from this entire conversation, it's this: you need to raise your standards for love. Not in a way that's harsh or guarded, but in a way that honors the depth of who you are. Love isn't just about how someone makes you feel in the beginning. It's not about chemistry, attention, or fleeting passion. It's about whether someone shows up with curiosity, with care, with consistency, and whether they ask you the right questions. The truth is, we often set our standards based on what we think we can get, not what we actually deserve. Sometimes we hold on to people who give us crumbs, who show us flashes of interest but never bring the depth we really crave. We tell ourselves, at least they're here, or maybe this is as good as it gets. But that mindset keeps us trapped in shallow connections where we're constantly performing, constantly doubting, constantly settling. You don't need love that shows up only when you're shining. You need love that remains when you're silent, when you're confused, when you're not at your best. You need someone who asks the uncomfortable questions, who leans into your fears, who protects your emotional safety, who doesn't just want to know what excites you, but who also wants to know what hurts you, what scares you, what you're afraid to lose. When someone loves you for real, their love will make room for all of you, not just the parts that are easy to love. And that's what raising your standards really means. It means you stop tolerating love that is conditional, love that disappears the moment you stop entertaining, Love that doesn't ask about your happiness or your emotional safety. It means you stop accepting relationships where you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to disappoint someone, or afraid to take up too much space. The people who truly love you won't need you to shrink yourself to fit their comfort zone. They won't punish you for having needs. They won't make you feel guilty for wanting to be understood. Real love wants to understand. Real love doesn't just want to receive, it wants to build, to nurture, to protect. And here's something you might need to hear. You don't need to prove yourself to be worthy of that kind of love. You don't have to earn it by being perfect, by overgiving, by carrying the emotional weight of the entire relationship. You are already worthy of love that asks the right questions, love that listens, love that stays. But that love won't find you if you keep settling for less. It won't find you if you keep chasing people who are only interested in the surface version of you. It won't find you if you keep silencing your own needs just to keep someone around. Raising your standards is not about building walls. It's about creating filters. It's about knowing that not everyone deserves access to your heart, your energy, your dreams, your time. You deserve to be with someone who doesn't make you guess how they feel. Someone who is brave enough to ask the real questions and patient enough to hear the honest answer. So as you walk away from this video, I want you to remember, love isn't proven by words alone. It's proven by curiosity, by action, by emotional responsibility. Listen to the questions people ask. Listen to how they stay, how they show up, how they hold space for the rawest parts of you. You are not asking for too much. You are just finally asking for the right kind of love. And when you raise your standards, you make space for that love to find you.